Senator Tester. So if you can line up that way, Senator Menendez from New Jersey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a massive racial home ownership gap in this country, which is a serious problem because owning a home is a key to building intergenerational wealth and reduce racial wealth inequality overall. According to the Census Bureau data, the white home ownership rate is about 74.4%, compared to about 43.1% for African Americans and 48.4% for Hispanics. So, Ms. Martin, Mr. Waller, what are some of the barriers to minority home ownership, and how do large commercial landlords mitigate or exacerbate those obstacles?
Yes, hello. I could respond to that. What we have discovered in Northeast Ohio through the analysis done by Frank Ford of Western Reserve Land Conservancy, who is the chair of APAC, is that lending disparities are very real. And we're finding that majority minority neighborhoods do not have equal access to credit. So essentially, we still see redlining going on in those neighborhoods. We also see very disturbing trends where Black borrowers, even high-income Black borrowers, are having less of an opportunity of getting mortgage capital than even moderate-income white borrowers. So Frank's research is very startling in that. It's very clear, as stated, in some of our low mod areas, there is almost no opportunity for homeownership as it's become a completely investor-dominated market. There are essentially few to no mortgages being written in some parts of our community.
And if I could add, Senator, these practices and these types of landlords are often concentrated in low-income and Black and brown communities. The effect is that they're extracting wealth from these communities, and to buy a home, you need wealth. You need to build up money to pay for your down payment, also have stable income. And so these practices, because they put so much pressure on the families that live in these homes, that are renting these homes, they're often feeling like they're in a constant state of fiscal emergency. And that's very difficult under those situations to have the kind of stability that lends itself to the purchase of a home. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Well, I'm concerned the fact that institutional investors in real estate are potentially squeezing minority first-time home buyers out of the market. According to the National Association of Hispanic Real Estate Professionals, one of the critical barriers Latino home buyers face is that Latinos are overwhelmingly concentrated in areas of the country with acute housing shortages. So what can we do to ensure that first-time minority home buyers have a fair chance at competing with deep-pocketed institutional investors?
I think first and foremost, we need to make mortgage capital available. I think we need to provide some backstops to keep the investor behavior curbed in some of these areas where they're just essentially raiding neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm. And I would add that, it's a multifaceted problem. So there's a lot of different solutions that need to be employed. So I think some kind of, direct spending to state and local governments, mission-driven nonprofits to help actually increase supply, which is not increasing. It's not increasing fast enough. There simply isn't enough affordable housing in Georgia. Also, local governments need better information about these types of investors and institutions in order to make decisions at the local level to help increase supply.
Okay. Now, more and more housing is bought up by institutional investors. I'm concerned about the lack of transparency this is creating in real estate ownership. Imagine a scenario when an unoccupied house needs maintenance where the neighbors cannot notify the owner because the house is owned by an anonymous LLC. Ms. Melinda, how does the difficulty to determine and communicate with the true owner of a property negatively impact neighborhoods? I'm thinking about the 2019 Harvard study of rental properties in Milwaukee that found that properties bought by LLCs became more likely over time to receive code violations, fall into disrepair, particularly in high poverty neighborhoods. In other words, corporate ownership can degrade the quality of housing, and that can have negative impacts not only for the tenants in those properties, but for the surrounding neighborhood.
That's exactly right, Senator. We see this all the time around, the paperwork that I got when my building was owned lists a different name than what I was told I should be sending my rental checks to. It's a very convoluted system of trying to investigate for folks like tenants, right, who don't have the skills and the research time and capacity to investigate this kind of really tangled web of who's in relationship with who. And the violations that you mentioned, I mean, these have included dangerous, unpermitted work and careless construction. We've heard, one of my neighbors in a different building had to get sent to the hospital for asthma from unmanaged dust and debris from construction that was unpermitted that was happening. And the entire Greenbrook portfolio, according to the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, has received just over 3,000 total violations across their portfolio of just, 130 plus buildings.
That's pretty amazing. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Menendez. Senator Tester from Montana's recognized.